Hello, and welcome to the Outcry Theatre Podcast. I'm Becca Johnson-Spinos, and I'm the Artistic Director of Outcry Theatre. Every episode of this podcast delves into the artistic process of creating theater. This episode is about our current production of The Hunchback of Notre Dame, a new musical based on the Victor Hugo novel with songs from the Disney film. Hi, I'm sitting here with some of the stars of our upcoming production of The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Hi, my name is Lawson. I'm 16 years old and I'll be playing Quasimodo.
Hi, my name is Droz. I'm 18 years old. I'm playing Frollo.
Hi, I'm Stratton. I'm 18 years old and I am playing Quasimodo.
Hi, I'm Luke Williams. I'm 17 years old and I'm playing Frollo.
Okay, tell me a little bit about the show. What's the story?
The Hunchback of Notre Dame centers around this man named Archdeacon Frollo. The backstory of the show is him and his brother were raised through the church, and several years before the course of action of the show, his brother leaves the church and Frollo doesn't hear from him. And essentially, Frollo gets a letter from his brother, and his brother is dying on his deathbed and gives Frollo his deformed child, asking Frollo to raise this child as his own. And Frollo does so. And this young baby is named Quasimodo. And the show centers around their connection and their relationship through the love and hate that is formed between them. And it is really a show about their bond and what love is and what the struggles of love are. And the main conflict that ensues between them is when they both fall in love with the same woman, a gypsy named Esmeralda, as well as another man falls in love with her named Phoebus, who is the captain of the cathedral guard, and he works for Frollo. So all three of these men know each other, they work in close proximity, and they are all in love with the same woman. And they all have to handle this love in different ways within themselves, which creates the entire conflict of the show.
This show contains the music from the Disney film, but has a lot of the story elements and text from the original Victor Hugo novel. Tell me a little bit about that and about the style of the way that the story is told in this particular stage version of the story.
Well, it's definitely a much more grim take on the story than I think a lot of people are going to be used to, but honestly, it kind of elevates it, and it's going to surprise a lot of people, the twists and turns that the book differs from the actual movie. And the music as well is just so beautiful and really helps, again, elevate the plot of the show.
I think it's really interesting because when you first watch the original Disney movie, I remember watching it when I was little, and it seems like the story is this upbeat, beautiful thing that is all about everyone becoming happy in the end. But when you watch the musical, it has a lot more of a dark tone, and Alan Menken wrote beautiful music, and pairing this extremely beautiful music with this dark, gritty show just gives it this great flavor in a way. I feel like that's a weird word to use, but it's very interesting, the pairing of it.
And also a major difference between the staged musical and the movie is that every person in the show starts out as a congregant of the church, and then we see Quasimodo and Frollo on stage become their characters and sit and get into their character in the show.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about the style of the show, both the storytelling aspects and also sort of the non-realistic ways in which we go to the different maybe places and just the way that the story is told.
This musical contains a vaudeville-esque style of presentation. Our movement are non-realism with mostly the stones and the gargoyles. We have 12 stones and gargoyles in this show, and they have different movements, and they follow Quasimodo around, and they're his voice and his thoughts and his eyes and ears. And it's really interesting to see, rather than just two gargoyles, as the movie has, it's this band of gargoyles that follow Quasimodo around and help him tell his story and help get inside his head. And we have great visuals and presentation of what happens and the circulation of these movements and these people throughout the show.
And it is very different from a lot of modern shows, because usually shows nowadays, it's more like you're peering through a window into, it's like the audience is a lot more separate from the action that's going on stage, whereas with this show, we start off as if we're telling a story, we're bringing the audience into the story, we're addressing the audience. So that kind of leads to a very interesting vibe, differing from a bunch of shows nowadays.
So a major thing that makes this play sort of seem, it makes it feel more like a story being told on stage in a human way, is that you see the people move the set pieces, and the people who move the set pieces, the congregants, are still part of the story as they move the set around. They aren't just tech people moving the set. We have, to show streets moving, we have railings crossing each other and characters walking in between the railings as they walk, but yet the people moving the railings are saying lines and singing lines. So this play makes even the smallest elements seem human and seem real.
So tell me a little bit about your characters specifically. You guys are the focus of the story, and you have a very unusual relationship. Normally in plays, characters that are the main characters usually have a love relationship or have a completely antagonistic relationship, and you guys kind of have both. So talk a little bit about that for me.
There is a fatherly bond, but yet Frollo has this despise for the gypsies that makes him almost feel like it's impossible for him to love Quasimodo.
While on the outside looking in, it can seem almost as if it's this sort of abusive relationship, and it is, but in Frollo's mindset, he genuinely believes that he is doing right by Quasimodo, and he genuinely believes that by locking up Quasimodo and keeping him from the outside world, he's actually doing him some good, and that this is a good thing for him to be experiencing. But a lot of things with Frollo are about faith and how he genuinely believes in himself, and that relates very much to his relationship with Quasimodo.
Since Quasimodo doesn't have any outside influence, and really the only person he has a relationship with is Frollo, Quasimodo genuinely doesn't understand that that's not what human relationships are like. And so he still has this intense love for Frollo because he's this fatherly figure to him, and he doesn't understand that it's wrong.
So this has been a really interesting process, I think, probably for all of you guys. I really want to talk about how you all are coming at this with really different perspectives, because Andy and Dylan, this is your last Outcry Youth show that you guys are doing. Luke, this is your first Outcry Youth show, and Ian, this is your first lead in an Outcry Youth show. So you guys have very different perspectives on the process. What was that like, and sort of how do you think your perspective sort of colored your experience, and what's the process been like?
I mean, one big difference with Frollo and a lot of the characters I've played before, because I have played a lot of older characters, a lot of fatherly characters before. I've rarely played someone who is, again, from an outside perspective, he seems like a villain, and he seems like he's irredeemable, and he has this awful way of treating others. Having a character who is so sure of himself in what he does, but is also seen as the antagonist of the show, that was a very interesting role to take on compared to the other ones I've had. And as for this being my final show, it honestly, it's pushed me to really go at this with my all, and also it's just such a interesting and such a fun role to dig into, and I'm glad I'm going out on a high note.
So as someone who's new to Outcry, when I came in, I felt really pushed to my limits by Miss Becca in an amazing way, because the actor that I was when I first started Outcry and the actor that I am now is such a huge distance, and it's such a huge difference in such a positive way for me. And I feel like Outcry has made me better not only as a person, but as an actor. And applying that to my character, this character is so deep and so different than anything else I personally have ever played, and it's different from many other roles in musical theater at all, where you get his whole backstory and then you have to apply that to the rest of the character as you go on, and he is just so deep in every action that he does, and really fleshing that out has been an amazing process for me.
So honestly, this whole process has been kind of insane as a whole. First off, Quasi himself is just a super difficult role, and being thrown into that in your second show it's big, and it's been really hard but really satisfying, because obviously Becca has pushed me so much and I've grown so much as an actor, and it really showed me how much I can push myself to be better. It's very inspirational, and it's kind of changed my whole acting ordeal or whatever, and I don't think I'll ever be the same again after this show. And obviously being doubles with Andy Stratton is just incredible, because he's so amazing, and like being in scenes next to him and like just having him to look up to while you're playing this role, it really pushes me to like try and reach his level.
So I'm kind of a seasoned vet here at Outcry. Every single show that I've done with Miss Becca for the past 5 years, she has pushed me farther than I thought imaginable. And I knew going into this role that even though I've played difficult physical roles like this, that there was going to be nothing like this. And since it is my last show and I have done so much, it's really fun being scene partners with someone who's completely new to Outcry, Luke. It's just really cool having the two of us be together when I'm about to leave after being here for 5 years, and he is just coming up to Outcry. And it's really cool. I really feel like I get to be a leader of the process. I feel like I get to sort of be a mentor to all the people who are younger or who haven't done a lot of shows here, and I feel like I'm getting to help them help show the ropes, as well as show people how hard you have to work to do theater here. Because if you can't do the work, then you're in the weeds here at Outcry. So it's been really fun to get to play that part and be partnered with Luke.
Okay, we have both our hero and our villain here, and I want to talk to both of you. I want to start with Frollo. So you're obviously our villain, but the way that the show is set up, which I think is so brilliant, is that the first scene in the show, we really get to see you in a very sympathetic light and sort of see why you may make some of the choices that you make. And I just want you to talk about some of the complexities of him, and also talk about the difficulties of playing a role that is truly pretty despicable and does some things that are really hard to, I think, portray as a teenager on stage.
So Frollo is a very, very difficult role, because I have to play the villain who is truly human. And all of what he does is a reaction. And I think the major part of it for me, and the hardest part of it for me, was as I'm doing scenes with Esmeralda, who is the gypsy that I'm in love with, is having the conflict of me blaming my brother's death on the gypsies, and that huge contrast between me falling in love with something that I have found so repulsive and disgusting has been a very hard and very long thing for me to kind of unravel and apply to my character. But doing that, I have made a character, at least I feel, that is very human, but is also very wicked.
I think, and this plays a lot into one of the changes that I appreciate differing from the movie and into the book and into this play's narrative is I appreciate that we do get a bit more of who Frollo was as a person, why he gets shaped into the person that he is, getting that backstory. Playing a more nuanced character is far more interesting than playing him. Because with Frollo, it is so easy to play him as just the straight bad guy who no one is ever going to side with him in any way, or see him as remotely redeemable or relatable. But I think that getting that insight into who he was and why he is the way he is a big part of why I appreciate this version, and playing that is very difficult, but at the same time it's so intriguing and it's so fun to try and jump into that. I appreciate a role like that you can have these complexities with it rather than just playing a role that could be one note or that I could get bored with halfway through because he just sticks to one thing. So I appreciate that he's a lot more complex than that.
You guys also get this amazing moment where you sing your solo song, Hellfire, where you have the entire cast singing in Latin behind you, just like screlting at you in Latin as you sort of declare that you're going to burn Esmeralda. What's that like? Does it feel, I feel like it must feel like really cool and powerful to have that awesome moment.
From a Frollo sense, it feels like all of his life kind of has been leading up to this moment in a negative light, how all of his life, all these troubles he's gone to has gone up to this point where he's finally decided that he's going to kill someone over his basically religious belief. And I think it's a really epic moment for me where I feel just the hellfire overwhelm me, and the music really helps that too, how Alan Menken and Stephen Schwartz have written this to kind of be an over-compassing feeling of just hatred and fire.
This was already one of my favorite Disney villain songs of all time, so I'm not going to lie, it was a little daunting realizing that I was going to have to do this and hopefully do justice to it, but at the same time, it was just so exciting.
Okay, Quasi, let's talk about you. So I think this has probably got to be one of the most difficult roles of all time in terms of all of the things that you have to do. It's an incredibly physically difficult role. It's an incredibly vocally demanding role, both in speaking and in singing, and it's a very emotionally complex role. So I just want you guys to talk a little bit about the process and what that's been like and how you've sort of dealt with each of those challenges.
Well, I feel like Miss Becca's been sort of prepping me to play this role for a long time. She's trained me to be an extremely physical actor. I love taking on new physicalities and characters and weird voices that really can transport me to a new level of acting. But this is just, it's so much more difficult than anything I've ever had to do. It's been the hardest physicality to create because I have to break off any old tendency that I've had and really completely form a new character, and every single aspect, every single limb has to be different than normal. I played Batboy earlier this year, who is also a really physically challenging character and a completely different physicality. And for the first about month of rehearsal, Miss Becca kept saying, Batboy, 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 because I kept doing my Batboy physicality. So it's just been a real struggle to have to change the way I've been doing things and really form this new character.
Going into this, it was daunting, like knowing what was going to happen, but in my mind, I never really thought it could be this difficult. But overall, it has been the most satisfying thing I have ever done in my life. There's so much that goes into Quasimodo as a role, not even just physically, because obviously the physicality of it is extremely difficult. And the voice is, he obviously doesn't talk like anyone else because he's deaf. And so building the voice was difficult. Emotionally, there's so many different emotions that Quasimodo has throughout the show, and all of them, they're not light. All of these emotions that he has are pushed to the limits. And singing-wise, oh man, this show has pushed me so much as a singer. My range has definitely increased throughout this show, and it's been a time. It's been real fun, but it's been real hard.
Can you guys give us a little bit of your Quasi voices, please?
Well, hello, Ian. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm just doing the Outcry Theatre Podcast.
Oh, yeah, me too.
Whoa, really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you're sitting right in front of me.
I know, it's so weird. I don't even... What is this thing in front of us?
I think it's a microphone.
Bro, this is like the 1400s.
You're 1400s.
I don't even know what that is.
Me neither.
That was cute. Oh, one difficulty we even didn't mention that Andy and Ian also have to take on is that because their character is deaf, they learn a lot of sign language as well. One of the reasons that I wanted to do this show is for your big solo in Act 2, which is called Made of Stone. It's a very emotionally fraught song for Quasimodo, where it's him and his friends, the Stones and the Gargoyles, that have been guiding him and helping him this entire time, and he sort of turns on them. And it's a very physically and emotionally and vocally difficult song. What's it been like tackling that beast, knowing what the pressure is like on sort of delivering with that number, and what's that been like?
This number was daunting to me before the show even began. I was like, oh my goodness, no way in a million years will I be able to do that. But we've done it. We've done it whilst running around and yelling at stones and being out of breath. What's really cool about this number is it is not in the movie. It is unexpected. It's a surprise, and it is what makes the show so powerful and so incredible. And it makes Quasimodo a full circle character. It really brings just a punch to the end of the show. I think it's the catharsis of the show. It's the catharsis of my theater experience as a whole. I think everything that I've done ever is sort of leads up to this song, just as Quasimodo's life leads up to this song. So it's a struggle, it's a challenge, but done correctly, it can be the most incredible thing we've ever done in our lives.
So we've talked a lot about the powerful music in the show. What we didn't mention is that like 99% of the chorus part of the show is in Latin, and that all the cast members are singing those vocal parts on their off night. So all these people have had to learn both their solo parts and also all of this very, very difficult Latin, veering into 6-part, 8-part harmony in a different language. It's been quite the process getting all that down. Talk a little bit about that and the music and what it's been like sort of tackling that challenge. And also, I think how you guys feel it adds to the show.
So my personal experience with learning the choir part is I have done choir stuff in Latin before. Just recently in my high school choir, I performed Lacrimosa by Mozart. But a major difference recently is that I have actually never sung baritone 2 bass before. This is the first show that I've ever had to do that. So it's been a huge difference from singing something that is high and more harmony-driven, upper harmony, and sometimes melody, is now I'm on a lower harmony where I have to learn to be under voices, not over them. On the Latin aspect, the diction is a huge thing, and the pronunciation is a huge thing that we have drilled and worked on for however long we've been doing rehearsals, for a very long time. And it's come to a point where it is passable now. It is great.
Me personally, and I think most people on the show can agree with me, I have an extremely love-hate relationship with this choir underscoring throughout the whole show. Half of our rehearsals are dedicated to just learning this beast of music. And not only is it like a couple hard songs, every single song in the show has choir underscoring, hard choir underscoring, like really, really, really hard choir underscoring. But man, when you hear the song all together, everyone singing, it's gorgeous and beautiful and powerful. And we were talking about Hellfire earlier, and man, these choir parts, this Latin under Hellfire just adds the actual fire to the song. There was no other show that has chorus music like this. And I think that is what makes this show one of the best I've ever heard, because the music has some sort of fury and power and fire like no other, and it is completely incredible.
And I think one of the really cool parts about the choir as a whole is it's not just there to add to the music itself. It really adds to the environment of the show as a whole, because the entire thing is set around the 1400s, and it's in this Catholic church. And so when you have all of these choir members in the background singing during all of the songs in Latin, it really gives you that feeling of being inside of a Catholic cathedral. It just adds to the show a lot.
What's it like attacking the acting while singing, and how you sort of break down a song to be able to sing it and still act it, or what you do in terms of balancing having to sing and sound pretty while also delivering the emotion that your character needs to be delivering at the time that you're singing?
A huge thing about singing while acting for Frollo specifically is that Frollo, a lot of the time, it has a lot of tension in his body, especially in Hellfire. There's a lot of tension and has a lot of anger. And for me as a singer, I have to balance that tension with my singing, because if I get tension in my singing voice, I will not be able to perform vocally. So a huge thing for me while acting while singing was balancing the tension with my voice.
Despite the fact that I have mostly done musicals in the past, I don't feel there's ever truly been a musical that I've done where I've had a very intense emotional scene while singing. And so even going into this show, having done primarily musicals, it still opened my eyes to this like other world of doing all of these super hard emotional scenes while also adding on top of that the singing.
I've done a lot of plays. I've very rarely done musicals, and that's mostly just because the only musicals that really interest me are the ones that can have that kind of emotional weight to it, and that you can have that acting as well as the music, and it's not overpowering the other. Because some musicals, it seems more like the actors are focused on singing pretty than actually singing emotionally and making sure that the story is being told well. Instead, let's just distract you with bright, colorful visuals and pretty lyrics. So going into this, it's been a little difficult because I've been told I'm a good singer, but I've never been too confident in my singing voice. But I have received overwhelming support from Becca, from the cast, from my parents in my singing, and it's been challenging. It's been a little daunting, but it's been a lot of fun. And again, that music, if there's one thing that it can get me emotional, it's good music. It's the music that I can really feel something for and really can speak to me. And a lot of the songs in this show especially really speak to me and really get me in the sort of mindset and the mood that's necessary for this show.
The hardest thing for me is really committing to every acting moment while doing some really hard singing, while doing some really hard physicality. For example, the song Out There that Quasimodo sings at the beginning. Everyone knows that song. I've known that song for years. That's just a very popular song. It's been engraved in my mind. So Ian and I, when we were doing this song, we're very focused on making it sound really good, and that distracts from our acting. And it's hard because we've known this song for so long, so we've really had to go back through and look at every single moment and say, what are we saying here? What do we mean here? What are we feeling here? While also trying to sing the song, sing it pretty like we know how to, but also really understand the emotion behind it. And then with that comes a lot of times where we're trying to hit a really hard note and our faces go blank and Miss Becca just goes, dead faces, hey, You're doing dead faces. You're blank. Your eyes are glazed. Like, she's really pushing us to be acting in every single moment, even on that last high note before the end of the song. We have to act through all of it, and it's been a challenge.
What's been the most fun part about this process, or do you have a particular story or something that happened in rehearsal that, really felt like a fun, nice moment?
It helps that I've known a lot of these people for many years, and just getting along with this cast, it is such a talented and fun cast and a fun group of people to be around, and I love them all. They're practically extended family at this point. So just being around this group of people has been a lot of fun in general.
I think some of my favorite moments from this show sort of stem from being doubles with Andy. Like, sometimes when we're doing scenes where we have both casts up and we're not really doing anything in a scene, we'll like poke each other and he'll be like,
Hey, what's your name?
and I'm like,
My name's Quasimodo. And he's like, Whoa, me too.
and we have these like little conversations where we're both Quasi, and it's just so fun being doubles with Andy and just like playing around with each other and stuff, and it's great.
I'd say the funnest part of the show for me, and the best to unpack for me, is the whole end of the show for Frollo. It's such an emotional time for Frollo in his life. And I won't spoil the show, but stuff happens, and at the end of the show, I always am so lightheaded, I feel like I'm about to pass out. Every single time we run the scene at the end of the show, I always feel like I'm about to pass out. And in a weird way, that's a fun experience.
So, as I mentioned before, this is Andy and Dylan's last show with Outcry Youth Theatre, and they've both been with me since they were 13 years old. We've done a lot of shows together. I'd like for you to talk a little bit about sort of what the bulk of getting many years of experience working with the same group of people has been like, and how it feels to be moving on to the new chapter of your life as you both go off to study acting in college.
So, yeah, this is my 5th year working with Becca and working with all these people, and we're all just like a family. And it's been really, really incredible to make such magical theater with all of these people. And you will never find a more caring group and a harder group of workers. Everyone here is just so dedicated and talented and passionate and tough. And we call ourselves Becca's Army. It's just because we are a little army. We're all fierce, and everyone here is just like ready to like take on any challenge and take over the world. Getting to grow and get pushed and learn and teach and get taught from so many different people, and all of us getting taught from our evil leader, Miss Becca. It's been the most insane and magical journey of my entire life. And while I'm excited to go learn more about this in college, it's this place that got me here, and I'm gonna miss it with all my heart.
Okay, I can't promise that I won't get emotional or that this will be one sentence, but I'm gonna go for it. So before I knew Becca, I was the quiet, shy, chubby kid who kept himself, read books, and played video games in his room. So I had just moved into Plano, where they were originally set up, and I didn't really know anybody, and it was just a spur-of-the-moment decision of my mother to be like, hey, let me sign you up for this Anne Frank show that's going on. I'm like, okay, whatever. Nothing's going to come of it. Joke's on me. So I go into this audition, and I honestly completely screw it up. But Becca lets me do it one more time, and I somehow land the awesome role of Otto Frank and Anne Frank, which was the first of many dad roles and the first of many older gentleman roles. She has shaped me
into a better actor, a more outgoing person. There's a lot of things I can thank her for. She has given me a family, a place I can call a home away from home, a group of people that care about me as much as I care about them. And they're so supportive and loving. And I can't thank her enough for all the experiences and all the love and all the support. And yes, she has busted my butt plenty of times, but usually it has been for my betterment and to make me into who I am, which I feel like I turned out all right. So the hardest thing for me, for anything, is realizing that I'm going to have to say goodbye to it. So yeah, I just know I'm not emotionally ready for that, but I know it's coming, and I just want her to know that she's made me into a better person overall, and I thank her for that.
Why should people come see our production of The Hunchback of Notre Dame?
This show has such a heartfelt story, and it's so beautiful, and everyone in our company has been putting their heart and soul into this monstrosity of a show. It's so much, and we've all been working so hard. With theater, you pour yourself into these roles, and every person in the audience gets a little piece of that when they see the show, and I believe that everyone deserves to have a little piece of what we've created with this show.
This is a show filled with so much talent and raw, pure emotion and so much magic that it's truly one of the best shows Outcry has done, and it is something that you cannot miss for the world. It encompasses every single thing that Outcry stands for. Everything that anybody here has been taught is coming out in the show. Shows we have done in the past have been leading us to this show. There are also a lot of people in this show who will never be on an Outcry Youth Theatre stage again. A lot of people who are going to be putting every single ounce of their being into the show because they know it's their last time. This is sort of the an end of an era show. We have a lot of people leaving. It's going to be magic, and everybody has to be there to see it.
Well, thank you so much, guys. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for
you so
listening.
much.
Come see the show.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much for joining us for our latest episode of the Outcry Theatre Podcast. This podcast has been produced by me, Becca Johnson-Spinos, and edited by Jason Johnson-Spinos. For more information about this production and Outcry Theatre, you can find us on Facebook or at our website, outcrytheatre.com. That's theater with an R-E. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with your theater-loving friends.